Secretary Treasurer Reed, Assistant Superintendent McKenzie, and Directors of Instruction Braniff and Hunter. For our partners, we have, as you've already noted, Superintendent, prior to the meeting commencing. From COPAX, we're awaiting, I think, perhaps Monique Hiltz. Representing CUPE, Ms. Nola Welsh. Representing the Saanich Teachers Association, Mr. Michael McEwen. Representing the Saanich Administrators Association, Ms. Kelly DeClerc and Mr. Tom Vickers. So welcome. Of course, on behalf of the board, I wish to acknowledge and honor the fact that this evening we're meeting on the traditional lands and territories of our Wasanich peoples who have lived, worked, and learned here since time immemorial. And we offer this acknowledgement with gratitude, thanks, and respect, and in the hope that it promotes a measure of true reconciliation. Mr. Reed, just to check, we are recording, correct?
Yes, we are.
Yes, I see the banner indicating that. Moving to the agenda, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Trustee McMurphy, seconded Trustee Vanwell. Are there any late items or proposed revisions to the agenda? I'll put the question. All in favor of adoption of the agenda as sorry? Trustee McMurphy, are you trying to get my attention?
Am I unmuted now? I think.
Yes, you are. I can hear you.
We all received a letter from Judy Carroll, and I don't know if that should be under correspondence or not, or if that's for some other time.
I think that's for the March meeting, Trustee.
Okay.
McMurphy. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I'll put the question on adoption of the agenda. All in favor, please signify. Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Moving then to business at hand, I want to report that prior to this meeting, the board held an in-camera meeting, which is not yet completed. And so there's nothing I can report on at this point with respect to that, except to a certain extent personnel matters. Turning to the matter of minutes of January 19, 2022, are there any errors or omissions with respect to the minutes of January 19, 2022? Hearing none, I declare that those minutes be adopted as circulated. There are no presentations tonight. Are there any questions from our partners or public? And Superintendent, you might have to help me with this, but I'm not seeing any hands.
There are no hands up at this time.
Thank you. That takes us then to item 6, which is the report from the chair. And in that regard, in all things pandemic, yesterday, February 15, saw some relaxation by the provincial health authorities with respect to group gatherings and perhaps in other areas as well. My understanding is that the essence of the direction yesterday is to rescind the addendum which was implemented in December 2021, which would put everybody back to the situation prior to that addendum, which may mean that the board may be in a position to return to in-camera, we'll do that later, in-person meetings. But there is going to be, as I understand it, further clarification coming to senior staff later this week, and we will obviously be advised with respect to that. The corollary to this is that the continued access for trustees, staff, and others, our partners and our public, is a matter to be considered at that point. Policy 9 provides that a trustee may attend our meetings electronically in certain circumstances, but that does not apply to others. And so the board may need to consider continued electronic access of some sort and any terms thereof for our public and our partners. Thanks as ever to Superintendent Eberwin, senior staff, everybody on the ground, our partners, teachers, support staff, administrators, and parents for continuing the work in these difficult circumstances. And hopefully we will be moving from a pandemic into an endemic and back to some sort of normalcy before very long. Second, a standard item in the chair's report of late has been the strategic plan development, because of course it is the board's major initiative at this time and is the significant work in mapping our priorities and educational route for the next 5 years. At the January meeting of the board, it approved the draft plan and directed guidelines with respect to further and final community engagement, principally through other groups and a survey. This feedback will be presented to the Strategic Plan Advisory Committee at its March 3 meeting, and it's anticipated that there may be recommendations coming from SPAC to the board from that meeting for the March board meeting, with the intent of hopefully adopting the new strategic plan at that time. Some of you may have seen the article by Jeff Johnson in the Times Colonist about testing on Sunday. Mr. Johnson is married to Janice Johnson, who served as an assistant superintendent in this district some 20 years ago, by the by. And in the article, Jeff Johnson said this: student performance has been shown to improve in schools where the entire school community works toward goals that are communicated and shared among all in the learning environment. That sentiment has, of course, been articulated numerous times during this process of developing the strategic plan and ensuring alignment between the plan's goals and objectives, our operations, budget work, and budget priorities and school plans. So appreciation again to Superintendent Eberwin, the consultant for the plan development, Mr. Mike McKay, the committee, SPAC, and the board as we move towards the completion of developing the plan. I caution, though, that that's one stage. Monitoring and adjusting after the plan is adopted is, of course, at least as important as developing those priorities on which we will focus. Third, the budget too is an item that I wish to again mention this evening. This meeting will consider the adoption by bylaw of the 2021-2022 amended annual budget, the preliminary budget having been adopted last spring. It will also consider the terms of reference for the Budget Advisory Committee and the consultation plan for budget development for the 2022 and 2023 budget for next year. It's important to note that the intention is that BAC and the board adopt an approach that ensures alignment between budget development, budget work, and budget priorities with the contemplated goals and priorities of the strategic plan. So once again, thank you to Secretary Treasurer Reid and to the Finance Department with Director of Finance, Ms. Semaglia, for their work. In Trustee Silser's absence because of unavailability, I attended as the alternate BC PC representative, the BC Public School Employers Association, to its virtual annual meeting on January 27 and 28. This included the usual businesses of adopting the budget, 2 special resolutions, and electing 3 directors, and several presentations were received on support staff bargaining, local teacher bargaining, trustee conflict of interest, and communication strategies, and trustees were provided directly from BCPC with a summary of the AGM. Again, also on behalf of Trustee Silser, I attended on January 25 one day of local teacher bargaining. Appreciation to the district team led by Human Resources Director Robin Reid, and also to the teachers team led by Mr. Peterson for the work that they're doing. Some good news close to home. In the past 2 days, Central Saanich announced that its active transportation plan in 2021 identified priorities for us, including routes to Keating and Brentwood Elementary Schools and Bayside Middle School. The municipality will spend $890,000, including $500,000 provided by the province, to enhance the walking and cycling routes, principally Central Saanich Road as it relates to Keating, and the Wallace and Marchand intersection as it relates to the other two schools. It's intended that this work will be completed before September 2022. So thank you to Central Saanich, its council and its staff, and the province for this. Also, I wish to acknowledge that the schools involved were parties through traffic zone safety consultation with the Central Saanich Police, and also in writing letters of support for Central Saanich in its funding application to the province. This will, of course, continue and enhance safety of students as they attend our schools. I want to briefly acknowledge that February is the annual Black History Month, wherein we pause to reflect on the racism, discrimination, and other problems arising from maltreatment of minorities, in this case Black people, for the leadership that Black people have given to the province and to the education system, and to society generally, both in this country and this province, and also for recognition in our schools. And I understand that principally it's being promoted through our secondary schools as a time of reflection and discussion for the significance of this event and time. This is bittersweet. On January 31, 2022, we said goodbye to former trustee, now Victoria Martin, whose resignation became effective that date. Trustee Martin was elected in 2014 in the South Zone and re-elected in 2018. And I was pleased to be serving on the board when she joined. She was elected chair upon her election in 2014 and served 5 years before me, and then thereafter served as chair of the Finance, Facilities and Technology Committee, the Budget Advisory Committee, and the interim chair of the Policy Committee. Her experience, insights, and collegiality will be missed. I have taken the opportunity on several prior occasions to thank her, but at this, the first regular meeting of the board since her departure, I wish to formally acknowledge and honor her and her work. She's also a good friend. She provided 7 years of intense service and hard work to the board and to the district. This was sacrificial for her, both personally and professionally, and on behalf of the board, we wish her well as she refocuses her energies and her considerable talents. A commemorative gift has been ordered, and thanks to Ms. Glancy for stick handling this for us. It'll be lovely. I'll keep it a surprise. And when it arrives, perhaps we'll be back in person and we'll be able to present it to Ms. Martin directly as a commemorative gesture of our appreciation for her service. And then finally, that leads to the question of her vacancy. With her departure, we're a board of 6 trustees. Section 36(2) of the School Act provides that where a vacancy occurs after January 1 in the year of a general school election, the board may hold the vacancy open until that election, in this case mid-October of 2022. The board is aware of this, and if it follows Section 36, need not take any action, simply await the election in the fall. I dare say that Trustee Martin considered this, and astute as she is, chose January 31 to avoid a by-election. It's important to note that during a general election, the municipalities involved in the district administer the election for the district. We don't do that. If we were to conduct a by-election, we would be responsible for its organization, administration, and its cost, and would likely need to contract out that work. The net result, as I understand it, would be with the time involved, we probably would not have a new trustee until perhaps the May meeting. So we might have that trustee for 2 or 3 meetings prior to the election in October. So from my standpoint, and I hope the board's, it would appear to make good sense to await the October general election. And finally, I note that we all will enjoy Family Day on February 21. And so I wish you all a safe and healthy long weekend at that time. Thank you. And that takes us to the report from the superintendent. Mr. Everins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciated all the points that you shared this evening. Some great commentary. Thank you very much. I am in a unique position as a superintendent in being given a platform at every board meeting to present on a topic or topics that I feel are relevant or timely. It is rare that I get to share some information about 2 brand new programs that have just started in our district. And I asked Principal DeClercq if she would join me this evening. And with her help and guidance, we've put together a slide deck for you this evening to showcase our 2 brand new, very exciting programs that just launched at ILC in February. So the pictures are hot off the press. The information is hot off the press. And I even heard today that students in the programs are so excited about what's being offered that they're contacting district office staff to talk about how relevant they are and how excited they are to be part of the programs. And so today I want to share with you both our EACS program and our Take a Hike program, and to tell you more about them and how we've started off on an extremely positive note. I have Principal DeClercq here to walk you through a slide deck this evening and to share with you from the school's principal's perspective how wonderful it is to have these programs in our district, and some of the exciting news that the students have been already sharing about their implementation. So I'll pass the speaking wand to Kelly DeClercq, and I will be the button presser on the slide deck. So Ms. DeClercq, please, if you would.
Thank you. Dave, we haven't had a chance to go through this yet, so we're going to have to like really signal to each other about when we're changing slides.
Okay.
I am so excited to be here, which I don't know how often you guys hear for board meetings, but I am really excited to be here because it has been it's been a bit of a wild start to semester 2, and I say that with lots of great feelings and energy and excitement. So I do want to share with you first, our partnership with VIU has expanded from the hairstylist program, and we've started up our education assistant and community support certificate program. And through this presentation, I will be referring to this program as the EACS program. So I'm going to walk you through a bit about the EACS program, and then I'll also share with you about Take a Hike. And I do want to remind you that up until this year, we've had in semester 2 other programs running for quite some time, especially the hairstylist program. So starting up the hairstylist program is something we've been doing for, I think we're on year 13 now, and the STACK program is a little bit younger than that, but those 2 programs are also running. So I think when I'm speaking about these new launches, know also that there are a couple of other programs that are up and running in the same time frame and in the same location. So to start with EACS, the partnership that we have with VIU is a really strong partnership, and so we're really pleased to continue our work together, not just in the hairstylist program, but also with the EACS program. Right now we have 14 students in our cohort, 8 of which are dual credit students. And these students are coming to us from Stellies, from Claremont, and from both of our ILC campuses. And what we're looking to do is grow that number hopefully to 12 next year. The rest of our cohort is made up of adult students. And what's really nice about this, having this really rich layers of experience and ages in the program, is it creates a really nice tone. We have adults that are paying to come and participate in the program, and I think they're setting the bar high and they're providing a nice level of mentorship for some of our younger students. We also have 6 Indigenous learners with us in this cohort, so we're really excited and honored to have them joining us in this. Students, by the time that they finish with us, they will earn 36 credits towards their Dogwood graduation, which is a huge amount. And for some students, that's a really important number. All of our instruction happens at our ILC Saanich campus, and we use a blended delivery model. So what that means is sometimes our VIU instructors are teaching in person, and other times our VIU instructors are teaching through a distance learning Microsoft Teams platform. And in a couple of slides, I'll show you some pictures of what that actually looks like. So this was a picture from day one. As you can see, Ryan and I were really excited. Going through some of the expectations, you can tell the students are looking very keen. I don't know if that lasted the whole day, but they were really excited to be there with us. What the classroom that we use, that many of you will be familiar with, is across the hall from the Saanich Learning Center. And in the past, it was a tech lab that was used for lots of different reasons, lots of different uses. But right now it's being used on a full-time basis, well, 4 days a week, to host the EACS program. The next photos, there we go. The next photos, this is Leif Rasmussen, and we've done lots of work with Leif just trying to get this program up and running. And he's the department chair of Education Assistant and Community Support at VIU. So again, it's an honor to have him starting out the program, and he's made a point of spending lots of time in the classroom with our students. The photo on the right, up in the corner, you can see this is a Teams platform, and our IT department put in long hours trying to get us set up to really maximize the technology that we had available to us. So Leif, in the second picture, Leif is actually coming to us from his office at VIU. So it's really cool technology. He can actually see the full scope of the classroom. And when small groups are working in the classroom, the technology allows him to zoom in on small groups. So it's almost like he can be a part of those small group conversations, and then he can back up a bit and see the full scope of the classroom again. So we feel like it's pretty cutting edge, like it's pretty fun to be playing with. But we're certainly really lucky to have this, to be able to have our VIU instructors coming to us from all over. The structure of the program is it runs from February until August. Students go through 7 VIU courses. It's about 2 a month. And then they engage in 2 practicum pieces, one in Saanich School District, and that'll happen in the month of May, and then the other will be a community practicum that they engage in August. I will also say that the program ladders into other opportunities. So students might start with EACS, and then they might, a year or 2 later, might want to engage in social work, or go back and do their child and youth care, or perhaps they want to continue on into education. This one I think is the most important slide. There have been so many people involved with this partnership, with massaging our contract and making sure that we had everything in place that the students would need. So you can see in this list, Paul McKenzie, Monica Braniff were huge resources and lots of time spent behind the scenes. Wendy Walker was a huge part of the team and continues to be an incredible resource to us. Both Colleen and Heidi, as you guys likely know, are our district career leads. They've been a huge piece in getting this program up and running, from finding the students, connecting with adults, answering questions, interviewing, participating in the orientation. Nicole Thibodeau is our new career teacher at Saanich Schools. You guys should remember that name because she is a force and she's going to do incredible things. We've hired on Catherine Nutt as a program facilitator. So she's a Saanich staff member who is in the classroom at all times. So if Leaf or if another instructor is up on the screen, Catherine is there with the students in person, supporting that group work, answering questions, calling home in the evenings to say, hey, how's that assignment going? Another huge resource for us. And I have to mention Shelley Schuer. She's our admin assistant at the Broadmead campus, but she covers all of our CE programs. And as I said at the beginning, we've doubled the amount of students that we have on campus, which means that all of that administrative work that happens behind the scenes is being done by Shelley. And then again, the Saanich tech team has been instrumental in getting us set up here. And you can also see the VIU team. That's just a few members of the VIU team, but there are many, many more that are on the phone with us and helping to get everything ironed out. The next program is Take a Hike. And Take a Hike Foundation is, what they do is they partner with school districts to engage vulnerable youth in academics, community and mental health support, and they do that through connecting students to the outdoors and adventure. Awesome. It is a full-time academic program, so students attend Take a Hike 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday. Follows the same structure as the Individual Learning Center. So they're there 4 days a week, but for a full academic day. They spend a lot of time outside and will do so increasingly as the weather gets nicer. They have 1 day a week where they are out doing out trips all over the peninsula. And then most of their time is spent working through their academics with some wraparound counseling support. So again, their goal is to minimize barriers for vulnerable youth and to support them to find their own success and to develop a sense of resiliency. The Take a Hike team is, they share with us a full-time counselor, and that's Tristan. He's incredible. All of his work is from a trauma-informed lens. We also have Magda Taylor. She's our YFC, and then Dane Cox is one of our teachers. And Dane, again, he is a force, and he's got a way of really trying to find intersections in all of these learning opportunities to create a sense of relevancy for our learners. I also have to say, Ryan Ellis has done incredible work getting Take a Hike off the ground. He has done interviews, intakes, introductory parent meetings, the orientation. He's done incredible work, and I think it shows because the program is feeling really strong right now. And then district advocates are also involved in helping find the right students. And when students come onto their radar, this is just another pathway towards graduation that they can offer them. So as I said, it's a full year self-paced academic program. There are students are working on individualized programming, but we're also looking at as many ways as possible to bring students together to work on projects or to solve problems together, pulling from different subject areas. They do work on the core elements from the BC graduation plan. Right now, we're offering English 10, English 11, English 12, Math 10 to 11, PE at every grade level, Outdoor Ed at every grade level, and leadership. And some of the courses that we're looking at developing perhaps after spring break and most likely for next year is photography, a course on gardening, earth science, social justice, CLE, and CLC. The other piece there down at the bottom is the counseling piece, and that's where we've got really rich resources, having both Tristan and Magda there. When things are coming up for students, we have that counselor on site to be able to spend extra time unpacking what's going on for that student. They also do, they start the day with a circle and they end the day with a circle. They're doing lots of team building activities outside, and a lot of that is coordinated through Tristan. So this picture is actually from today, and gosh, if you haven't been to ILC Saanishton recently, every day is a new adventure. It is so beautiful out there right now. So this is the students on the back field doing a team building activity together. The two lower pictures are from the classroom. The classroom is gorgeous. Next time you guys are in the building, take a peek in. There's lots of plants. There's lots of, it's a really community-based feeling inside the classroom. So do take a peek in. And these pictures are from one of the first out trips to Songhees Point. This was, I think, last week or the week before, where students walked about 10 kilometers that day from the Delta Hotel downtown around the Inner Harbor, and then ended up at Beacon Hill Park. You can see the students coming together. And again, these are students that have come from all of our different schools, and the relationships are already feeling incredibly strong. And then again, a couple more pictures. This week, they actually went to Todd Inlet, and then they ended up at Island View Beach. So you can imagine on a day like today, those out trips are incredible for the students, how much fresh air they're getting, what they're seeing, the hands-on learning that they're able to do. And some of the other trips that they have coming up is to Boulder House. They're going to spend some time out at Wild Play. They'll be doing some volunteering. And before spring break, they'll do another trip out to Thetis. That's it.
Thank you. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chair, but I'm sure there might be a couple of comments or questions out there as well.
Yes, thank you. I see Trustee Holman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Superintendent, for the report, and for those providing it as well. And congratulations, really innovative, pretty spectacular programs. My question is around funding for both the EAC and the Take a Hike program. Are those, is enrollment falling within kind of the district's budget, or are there enrollment fees or scholarships? How are each programs handling that?
The Take a Hike enrollment, that's coming from our alternative ed funding. So that comes through my office. And then the EACS is through our continuing ed. So we can claim course by course funding for a lot of that. And again, that's one of the reasons that we want to grow that program. The more dual credit students we have, the better able we are to fund the program. So that's where the funding comes from.
Is that for the adult programming as well, for the EAC?
No, the adult programming actually goes through VIU. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Superintendent, for your report, and particular thanks to you, Ms. DeClercq, for coming. I know you're here as an administrator, but you're also here to explain the presentation that you just provided us with as part of Mr. Everyone's report. So thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving then on in the agenda, school successes, trustees, the report is attached. And then moving to committee reports, first the Education Directions Committee with Committee Chair McMurphy, please.
Thank you, Chair. We met. We had lots of discussion. We had two excellent presentations, and they're listed on your agenda, so I won't belabor them, but just let me tell you that the early literacy presentation about phonemic awareness and the implementation of the Hegarty reading program were both gobsmacking. They just the way that these little kids are learning to read through using incredible vocabulary, physical activity, physical motion, and learning all about decoding and encoding, and it was just really quite breathtaking to see the way teaching is evolving and learning is becoming so much more an integral part of the kids' being rather than something artificial that's sort of, separate and apart from their existence. This becomes very much an internalized process. And then secondly, thanks to Melissa Austin and Carly Hunter, we had a very interesting presentation on First Nations education jurisdiction, because as you probably know, First Nations education authorities are finding themselves with much more in the way of responsibilities and authority to create an education structure within their own particular bands that allows them to, for example, certificate teachers and develop curriculum and graduate students, etc. And so we had a really interesting presentation with Melissa about what's happened specifically with regard to the Wasanich bands, the 4 Wasanich tribes here on the island. And one of the things she emphasized was that we in Saanich are very lucky to have one entity to interact with, even though we have 4 distinct and separate bands, because she said in many districts, there may be 3 or 4 or 5 bands, and the school board has to interact individually with each of those boards. And so we're very fortunate here to have the relationship that we do with the Wasanich peoples. Unless there's any questions, my thanks to those who presented at EdDirections, and we have no items for discussion or recommendation or information.
Thank you, Trustee McMurphy. Finance, Facilities and Technology Committee Chair Vanwell, please. Trustee Holman, do I see your hand with respect to the EdDirections report?
Thank you, Chair. No, my hand went up in relation to the FF&T report, and it's a procedural policy question that I believe affects the motions, and wish to put that question forward at this time.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I note that in February, the committee composition changed given Trustee Martin's resignation, and the chair appointed himself to the Finance and Facilities Committee, and that is not consistent with Policy 7 under General Requirements Point 2 that states that the board shall act as an ex officio non-voting member of all board committees. And I raised that as a question of concern, and just wondering whether there are implications at all for the motions coming forward at this time.
All right, Mr. Reid, do you have any assistance for us with this?
Yeah, sorry, I was just unmuting myself. My interpretation of the policy was that provision didn't also preclude the chair of being a member of a committee.
And it is the chair's responsibility to appoint members of the committee. And so that's the decision that I made in that case. Thank you. All right, over to you, Trustee Vanwell.
Thank you, and I realized I was muted when I started talking. So,
Okay.
So we have quite a full, quite a lot of motions to go through today. So, in our committee, we had some items for recommendation, being some bylaws, and so I will start with the Children's Development Center road allowance. That the board. I recommend that the board adopt the bylaw, or sorry, that the board adopt the bylaw, and I therefore recommend that the board approve the first reading of the Children's Development Center Dedication Bylaw 2022.
Is there a seconder? Trustee McMurphy. Trustee Vanwell?
So in this when we built the Children's Development Center, there was a small portion that the Saanich district needs to have moved over to them. A small, is it 7.8 meters, 7.8 square meters, and so the recommendation is to approve the road dedication and the outline, and it's been outlined in the briefing notes that were provided for us.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the first reading motion? I'll put the question then. All in favor, please signify. Opposed? It carries. Thank you. Trustee Vanwell.
All right. So we have the second reading of the Children's Development Center Dedication Bylaw 2022. That the board approve the second reading of the Children's Development Center Dedication Bylaw 2022.
Second, Trustee McMurphy. Any comment, Trustee Vanwell?
Nope.
Any discussion, trustees? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried as well.
All right. So in reading the motion for a third time, this motion needs to be carried unanimously. That the board approve the reading.
Sorry, Trustee Vanwell, unanimously if we want to proceed with third and final reading tonight.
Exactly. Thank you. That the board approve the reading of the Children's Development Center Dedication Bylaw 2022 at this board meeting for a third time.
Trustee McMurphy seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried unanimously, Trustee Vanwell.
Wonderful. That the board approve the third reading, pass, and adopt the Children's Development Center Dedication Bylaw 2022.
Second by Trustee McMurphy. Any discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So next we have the 2021-22 amended annual budget. The committee recommends that the board approve the first reading of the amended annual budget bylaw for fiscal year 2021-2022 in the total amount of $107,185,151.
I saw Mr. Reed gulp at that. Thank you. Seconded by Trustee McMurphy. Any comment, Trustee Vanwell?
No.
Any discussion, trustees? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
That the board approve the second reading of the amended annual budget bylaw for the fiscal year 2021-22 in the total amount of $107,185,151.
Trustee McMurphy seconds, I see. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
That the board approve the reading of the amended annual budget bylaw for the fiscal year 2021-22 in the total amount of $107,185,151 at this board meeting for a third time.
And again, as a bylaw, if it's to be read for the third and final time, it'll require unanimity in this.
Mr. Chair, if I could interject for a second, Trustee Holman, I believe, is having some connection problems, and she's actually left the meeting right now. She was frozen there for a little bit, so just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Well, perhaps we can take a moment, and would it help, Superintendent, if you tried to help her back in?
I will try to invite her back in and see what happens, yes.
Let's take a moment.
This is so much fun.
Did everybody else get booted out?
She's back now.
Okay, no,
just you, Alicia.
Oh,
But you're back.
okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
No,
That's
thank
okay.
you.
Should I
Okay.
read it for, what should I read the motion again?
Were you here, Trustee Holman, when Trustee Van Wel moved the motion to read for a third time?
I don't think I was present for any of those. My screen froze and,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So
All
I
right.
don't,
So thank you.
I don't want you to go back. If this is the one that's unanimous, I'm happy to support it, but I don't think
Okay.
I was part of the earlier.
Okay,
well,
I'll just read it again for a third time, because this is the one that needs to be unanimous. That the board approve the reading of the amended annual budget by law for fiscal year 2021-22 in the total amount of $107,185,151 at this board meeting for a third time.
All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried unanimously.
All right. That the board approve the third reading, pass, and adopt the amended annual budget bylaw for fiscal year 2021-22 in the total amount of $107,185,151.
Second, Trustee McMurphy. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay, so moving on, we have the revision of international homestay fees. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van Wel, move that the board approve increasing the monthly homestay fee from $975 to $1,100 effective September 2023.
Trustee McMurphy seconds. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Trustee Van Wel?
Yes, briefly. So this has been brought forward to bring in line Saanich home fee stays along with Victoria and Souk for the 2023 school year.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? I'll put the question then. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Okay. So we have a report from the Budget Advisory Committee. The terms of reference. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van Wel, move that the board approve the Budget Advisory Committee terms of reference.
Trustee McMurphy seconds. Anything to say about this, Trustee Van Wel?
No.
Anything to say about this, trustees? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then we have the budget process consultation plan. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van Wel, move that the board approve the 2022-23 budget process consultation plan.
Trustee McMurphy seconds, I see. Do you wish to speak to this? Trustee Van Wel?
No.
Trustee Holman?
Yes, thank you. Chair, through you to the committee chair. I couldn't see it in the document, but I just wanted to clarify the advisory consultation meetings with students. I think there was some discussion at committee, and I'm just wanting to confirm that those would be available to all trustees for attendance per our policy guidelines around all members having opportunity to participate. Am I correct in that?
Secretary Treasury, did you want to take this one on?
Yeah, sure. That wasn't it wasn't specifically addressed in this plan, but it will be addressed at the April meeting of Budget Advisory Committee. I think the intention is that trustees will have the opportunity of attending those meetings, and I think I recall last spring the only, or the reason why it was restricted, I believe, to trustees on the Budget Advisory Committee was because of the limitations and the anxiety around COVID and meeting in person. Was my recollection. So but it wasn't specifically addressed in the plan, but we will discuss it at the April meeting.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion to approve the budget process consultation plan? Put the question then. All in favor? Opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you.
All right, I have my last one. Letter to the Ministry of Education. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van, will move, that as the Ministry of Education has not responded to our letter of May 26, 2021, regarding education funding, and because there is now a new Minister of Education, the Saanich Board of Education write again to the Minister of Education regarding the issue of funding for public schools that does not compensate for the increase in annual inflationary costs, leaving a potential budget shortfall for school districts each year, requesting that budgets in all public school districts be made whole in this regard, and further urging the minister to encourage all parties charged with reviewing the education funding formula under the leadership of the Ministry of Education to resolve these outstanding issues without further delay. In particular, the unfairness of the way the funding formula rewards districts with growth enrollment while penalizing districts experiencing declining enrollment.
Seconded by Trustee McMurphy. Trustee Vanwell?
This motion was supported by all, and I think it's a worthy letter to send to the Minister of Education.
And Trustee Holman, please.
Thank you, and through you to Trustee Vanwell, I certainly support the intent behind it. I think that at committee or at a previous board meeting, we did have some discussion around BCSTA and its work on advocating on this very topic. And I'm just wondering whether we've had an update on any response that BCSTA may have had, or a status on communication from them to the ministry. I'm just wondering whether there's anything there that could also help inform us on this matter before we vote.
I think I mentioned at committee that I had spoken with the regional BCSTA director, Tracy Loeffler, because she often, in fact, usually asks if there are any issues in front of the board that she might want to take to BCSTA, and I took the liberty of advising of the board's concern about unfunded inflationary pressures. And that didn't surprise her, as she's heard it before from many other districts, and indicated she would take that to the BCSTA Board of Directors meeting. I'm sorry, Trustee Holman, I can't recall if that's held yet. I think it was held last Thursday, but in succinct answer to your question, I have not had a report back from BCSTA or her on the status of that issue there. I don't know, Trustee Vanwell, if you heard anything at Provincial Council on the weekend, or if you have anything to add to that.
No, I didn't hear anything about it in regards to at the BCSTA Provincial Council at this time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there further discussion on the motion to forward this letter to the ministry? I'll put the question then. All in favor? Opposed? And the motion is carried.
Thank you. And we had some items for information. We had we were provided with the energy sustainability report, and we were updated on the Parkland track, and an update on the fiscal forecast. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Trustee Holman?
Yes, thank you. I would like to move that the recommendations on the summary page of the Energy Sustainability Report be referred to the March board meeting for consideration.
Is there a seconder for that? Trustee Silzer. Trustee Holman.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I very much appreciate the report that we received and the added details around our ability to meet or not meet the goals that are set out. And I think, like the inflationary costs, the board recognized that there's a gap between funding and that to which the district's ability to achieve the goals that have been set by government. So I think that the recommendations that came to committee are certainly worth reviewing, and perhaps a reconsideration as well around how to address the funding gaps. So I know that didn't enter into committee discussion. It was there for information, but I believe it would be beneficial for the board to engage in that at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee McMurphy.
I'm just wanting to clarify, these are the recommendations with regard to buildings, the 5, the transportation 4, and paper, the 3. Is that what we're talking about?
Trustee Holman is nodding in the affirmative, yes.
Yes, that's right. It's a summary at the last page of the report.
And I'm just wondering if we could have a comment from the Secretary Treasurer as to the viability of implementing those recommendations.
Yes, he has his hand up in any case.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I had my hand up to confirm. I got the motion, but I missed the page number that you had referred to, Trustee Holman. It was the recommendations in the energy plan report on page, and I missed that.
Was it
it's
page
the last
3?
page of the report. It's a summary of all 3 recommendations.
It's actually not the last page. It's the penultimate page, 25.
25. Okay, I'm going to need to take a minute to find the report and open it.
Yes, please.
Chair, while we're waiting, do you mind refreshing my memory as to what exactly the motion was?
I don't have it in writing, so I'd rely on Mr. Reed, perhaps, or Ms. Glancy.
Trustee Holman could repeat it, maybe?
I didn't get it either. I didn't get it, so if she could repeat it, that'd be great.
Trustee Holman, over to you.
I've put the recommendations in the chat, and I'm just drafting the motion as well.
Well, you moved something.
You moved a referral to the March meeting, I thought. And Trustee Silzer seconded that. I think it was a referral of the summary of the recommendations to the March meeting, was it not?
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the March board meeting.
Okay, the recommendations were simply referred for discussion or something? Is that,
yes.
Have I got it right?
Yes.
So I put the recommendations and the motion in the chat just for everyone's benefit.
Thank you.
So, Chair, I've gone through the recommendations, and I don't have an issue with any of the recommendations in particular, but some of them some of them are more, some of them we're doing, some of them we are not yet doing, and some of them refer to implementing procedures, changing processes around centralizing, for example, purchasing of paper, and encouraging consumption through technological and behavioral initiatives. So some of them are straightforward, and some of them are less straightforward. So, but I'm in agreement with all the recommendations in this report.
So if the motion, excuse me, if the motion is carried and they are referred, these kinds of clarifications can be discussed at the March meeting.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Trustee McMurphy, your hand is still up. Do you wish to speak?
Sorry.
To that? All right.
Sorry.
Is there any further discussion on the motion of referral of these recommendations to the March board meeting? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you. Moving then to the Policy Development Committee report with Committee Chair Stelk, please.
Thank you, Chair. So there were three policies that were discussed at the committee meeting, and the first one was Policy 7, board committees, and there was a fairly good discussion about this, and I think it was felt that it needed more consideration and more time. And so the motion is the committee recommends, and I, Trustee Stelk, move that the matter of how committee agendas are established be referred to staff for report back to the policy committee.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Trustee Holman, thank you. Trustee Stelk, do you wish to speak to that?
I think just as I said initially, there was a fairly good discussion, and it was felt that we needed more time and we needed more information from staff as to how agendas are established, and that's why it's being referred back to the staff and for a report, and then it will come back to the policy committee for another robust and fulsome discussion.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion on the motion? I'll put the question in. All in favor? Opposed? And the motion is carried.
Okay, the second one is Policy 9, and there were two proposed additions to Policy 9, which is board operations. So the committee recommends, and I, Trustee Stelk, move that the board confirm its consideration of revisions to Policy 9 as proposed, and I'll detail them in a minute once it's on the floor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Trustee Holman. Thank you. Trustee Stelk.
Yeah, so there were two suggestions for change, and maybe it probably makes sense to deal with them one at a time. The first one is meeting agendas, and there were several sections to this, and I think I'm assuming that everybody's got it, and that how items could be placed on the agenda in different ways, by notifying the chair, by notice of motion or a request, and that the chair at the beginning of the meeting shall ask for additions and or deletions from the agenda prior to agenda approval. Changes could be made by a majority of trustees present. So that was the first one.
All right, so perhaps we'll deal with that then, Trustee
Yes.
Stelk, as you suggested, because it is a discrete
Yes.
point. Is there discussion on this, trustees? Trustee Holman.
Yes, I'd like to, I guess, be advised as to whether this changes past practice and whether it's in line with Robert's rules, or whether it would change would it supersede Robert's rules if this were adopted?
Mr. Reid, can you answer that?
Could I get a little bit more background on specifically what we're talking about? Is it
Trustee,
the addition?
it's the 2.9
2.9.
meeting agenda points.
Okay. So the past practice of the board has been that the agenda prior to the board meeting is set or it's established through a meeting of the Secretary Treasurer and the Chair. And the purpose of that meeting is to determine what needs to be on the agenda, whether it's flowing from the committee or whether it is in the board's annual work plan, or whether it's an emerging item that requires the board's attention. And so there are no other items that are added to the agenda through that process. It isn't an opportunity for the chair to say, I think we should talk about this, let's put it on the agenda. That doesn't happen. The process for adding new items onto the agenda historically has always been, if it's not in the category of it's coming from committee, it's coming from the board annual work plan, or it's an emerging item, the process for adding items to the agenda has always been an amendment to the agenda that occurs in the board meeting. And in my view, that's good practice because it is very transparent and it is apparent to the board which items have been pre-populated into the agenda because they are in the previous categories, board annual work plan, coming from committee or emerging matter, and those items that have been added to the agenda. Did that answer the question?
I think that it added some information. I think that there's been some variance to that over the term, but that's not the point that is before us at the moment. It's clarifying the policy. So thank you.
That is currently the policy, how it's been applied.
Thank you. Trustee Van Well is next.
I have an amendment I'd like to propose.
Yes.
That we add draft to the sentence of items may be placed on the agenda in one of the following ways.
So you're moving to insert the word draft before agenda?
Yes.
Is there a seconder for that? Trustee Holman? Trustee Van Well, do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, I think that when the agenda is first circulated, it is in draft form. It is not a true agenda until it is adopted at the board meeting.
Mr. Reid, do you have your hand up with respect to this?
No, I'm sorry. I just need to take it down.
Thank you. Trustee McMurphy?
I'm waiting to speak on the main motion.
All right. Is there further discussion on the amendment to insert the word draft before agenda? All right. Seeing none, Trustee Stelp.
Yeah, thank you. This did come up in the committee meeting and the wording was proposed agenda. It's a small point, but we did discuss it.
Well, we have draft now. We have draft now, yep. Trustee Stelk, so that's what's before the board. All right. Trustee Holman, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, I do, because throughout the term, when we receive the documentations for our meetings, the agendas always say agenda. They don't say draft agenda. It's the process of amending the agenda to add it that takes place through our procedures. So the recommendation at committee was the proposed agenda, because I believe that's in sync with what we have. I think if I'm understanding the amendment correctly, it would change, and the title, if you will, of all of our agendas would appear as draft agendas until it's adopted. And I'm not sure that was the intention. I thought it was sort of more keeping in line with Robert's rules that, you know, the agenda is set as the proposed agenda until it's adopted, as opposed to a draft agenda.
Right. And Trustee Van Well, you have your hand up again, do you? Okay, then I'll put the question on the insertion of the word draft. All in favor? Opposed? And the amendment is defeated. So thank you. Back to debate on the main motion. Trustee McMurphy.
Thanks, Chair. I'm opposed to the motion. I think that if we follow Robert's rules, which we do and have done, and I think quite successfully, I think the previous discussion basically underlines my position, which is that the agenda that comes before the meeting is a draft agenda. It's a proposed agenda. It's in somebody's figment of someone's imagination agenda. I don't care what you call it, but it's not the agenda until the board votes on it. And any one of us, as a trustee, is free to propose amendments to that proposed or draft or figment agenda to once it's been moved and put on the floor. So I don't think we need a whole bunch of other rules about how to get things on the agenda. The Secretary Treasurer has outlined a process that deals with all the formal business of the board, which has to, you know, come forward on a routine basis for the board's deliberations. And if there are other things that trustees want to have on the agenda, any one of us can circulate information or suggested motions or whatever ahead of time, but that nothing is formal and nothing is on the agenda until it's adopted by the Board of Trustees at the regular meeting or in the in-camera meeting. So I don't think we need a whole new section on talking about the meeting agenda. I think the rules I think Robert's rules govern us, and they govern us well. I think it's simpler that way.
Trustee Stelk.
Thank you. I agree with Trustee McMurphy. Robert's rules does cover it, and I think rules 41 and 47. And one of the, as we were reminded in committee meeting, we're trying to simplify our policy, and as it's already covered in Robert's rules, I don't think it's, and because it's a proposed agenda, I don't think it's necessary to include it in our policy at this time.
Trustee Holman.
Yes, thank you. So trustees will recall that this item was added to the policy committee's agenda a year or two ago. It's been on there for quite some time. And I did that because as a new trustee, in the first year of my term, I did ask for confirmation and clarification around this very item in terms of how to influence the development of the agenda. And I was given different responses from different people, both from the board and from staff. And the intention of having it clarified in policy is to make it clear for everybody to know what the rules of the road are, if you will. And it's my understanding that efficient and effective operation of the district goes a long way towards our ability as governance, and as a board of governance, to help the smooth operation of the district and of our meetings. And I think that we've stumbled with this one over time, and having it clarified in our policies, in our procedures, I believe will help clarify it, will help ensure that we've got a reference point that's not, within kind of a Robert's rules lookup, but actually within policy that we can all and new trustees can also look towards. So I think that it does the opposite of what was represented as simplifying. It does simplify by having it in policy. And I believe that it goes a long way towards the effective operation of our meetings.
Thank you. And Trustee Van Well.
I would just like to echo Trustee McMurphy and Trustee Stelk in that I believe that this information is already covered in our policies and does not need to be repeated in this policy as well.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion to adopt the amendments in 2.9? I'll put the question then. All in favor, please signify. Thank you. Opposed? The motion is defeated. And so then, Trustee Stelk, you wanted to deal with, was it 2.11?
That's right. There was an addition to 2.11, which is, so whenever the chair is called upon to decide a point of order or practice, the point shall be stated without unnecessary comment, and the chair shall cite the rule or authority applicable, and this is the proposed addition, and state his or her reasons when making a ruling.
Yes, and you've already moved that with the initial motion. Do you wish to speak to this?
I think this is in Robert's rules as well, but it does clarify that the chair is to state the rule and give reasons at the time of his or her decision. So it provides further clarification to an existing point of procedure.
Is there further discussion on this? Trustee Holman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to find the wording for that. Was that in the committee report?
I believe so. I'm
Can
looking.
you point me to it?
Sure.
Yes, it was. Or no, it wasn't in the not the one coming to the board, but it's online.
Sorry, was it in the minutes from the committee, or could it be shared?
It's in the committee report in the board pack.
Okay, I'm looking at that now. On what page? Sorry.
I don't know the page, but it's 2.11.
It's page 11.
It's highlighted in my page.
Yeah, it follows the meeting agenda that we just discussed. Yeah. Thank you, Superintendent.
You're welcome.
So, Trustee Holman, do you wish to further speak to this? Or I think, Alicia, you may be muted.
Okay, so Nora, okay, so this was what was submitted to committee, but I don't see that in the committee report.
This is the committee report.
It's in mine, Trustee Holman.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there further discussion on this? All right, Mr. Eberwin, you could take it down perhaps so I can see everybody. Thank you. All right, I'll put the question then. All in favor of this amendment in 2.11? Hands up, please, so I can make sure I see you. Those who are voting in the affirmative, thank you. Opposed? Trustee McMurphy, are you voting?
Nope.
And I'm missing somebody. Trustee Silzer.
Trustee Silzer, yeah.
Trustee Silzer, did you vote? And you're muted, Nola.
Yes, Chair, I voted in the negative.
All right, then the motion is defeated. Back to you, Trustee Stelk.
Okay, thank you. So that's policy 9 is then defeated. Those were the two additions. So the next one is policy 19. This is accumulated operating surplus. And as the required notice of motion has been provided, I, Trustee Stelk, move the following motion that revisions to policy 19, accumulated operating surplus, be approved.
Is there a seconder? Trustee McMurphy, Trustee Stelk, do you wish to speak to this?
Well, this has been on the table for quite a while, and this has to do with legislative changes. I don't know if the Secretary Treasury wants to speak to it again. It was bringing our policy in line with, as I understood it, with the legislation.
Yeah, they weren't legislative changes, but they were new policies implemented by the ministry that required some specific policy language for boards. So these changes reflected that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Trustee Holman.
Sorry, my comment was relating back to policy 7 and 9, so I'll just ask that we go back once we finish this business.
All right. Is there further discussion on this motion with respect to policy 19? All in favor? Opposed? And that motion is carried. Thank you. Trustee Holman?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The February committee meeting did not include agenda items of reference that I had submitted. In the January committee meeting, policy committee meeting, there was a specific request of the chair that information be sent in advance so that committee members and partners and everybody would have it. It was sent in advance of the agenda being created and distributed, and I didn't add it as a late item, and I was anticipating that that would have been there, and I didn't want to put people on the spot not having received it in advance. So I'm just noting that my expectation is that I submitted it to chair, vice chair, and staff for inclusion. I believe that is part of our procedure. And so my expectation is that would be coming forward in the March meeting. Is that correct?
I don't know that to be the case at all, Trustee Holman. These amendments have now been adjudicated by the board, and they have been dismissed. And I don't know that the resources you speak of have any relevance to anything in the March meeting.
Well, with due respect, we've passed motions based on the understanding that there's been a practice in place that everybody is aware of. It was noted in January that information would be forthcoming from me. In addition, I was asked to submit it. In the past, things submitted in advance were circulated to our partner groups and with the committee agendas, and this was an exception, and it was an oversight, as I believe was described in the February meeting. So I'm at a loss to understand why those would be excluded from our deliberations going forward. They were asked for, they were sent, didn't make the agenda, and now you're suggesting we're moving on. And
I'm not suggesting, I'm saying we are moving on, Trustee Holman. Had you wished to refer to any of those items, those resources in your argument, whether or not they had been brought before this meeting or the committee meeting or not, you might have done so. They were not referred to by you or anybody else. And now, after the motions have been defeated, you are raising this point. I'm not sure what your point is, but we have dealt with them, and so we are now going to move on. Thank you. Back to you, Trustee Stelk. Do you have anything further in your committee report?
I have no further motions. We have some future agenda items which are on the report for Policy 1, Corference, and Chawthon, etc. But there are no other. That concludes my report.
All right, we'll move then to item 13, reports from trustee representatives. I note, Trustee Van Well, that you have a report.
Yes, I do, and it's actually going to be quite a short one because we had our meeting on Saturday and started at 8:30. We had some oral reports from the president, the CEO, and some standing committee reports. There were no motions. And then we finished off at 10:15, which was a record, as they said. I will note that in the 2022-23 draft budget, there were some inflationary costs that were brought forward, and one of the ones that was brought forward was the inflationary members fee, and it was increased by $44,423, and it was to be fully funded by the 2020-2021 year-end surplus in accordance with direction from February 2017 Provincial Council. And then and that was it, actually. That was all we had. It was short, it was sweet, and that's my report.
Thank you. Are there any other reports from trustee representatives? Trustee Holman.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to report that I attended, as well as yourself, a COPAX meeting last week, and it was a very informative meeting. I think one of the questions that was raised touched upon something that you, Chair, provided in your Chair's report, and we didn't have an opportunity to engage then. So I'm just raising it. I know it was regards to participating electronically in board meetings once we resumed in-person meetings. That question did come up by COPAX. And so it's not clear to me with the revisions to public health guidelines and gatherings and such. Are we expecting that meeting to be in person in March? Do we know the interpretation of those guidelines? I bring it up now as a note of question from COPAX.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Holman, and indeed, you're right, I did raise it as a question in my chair's report this evening as well, in that if and when the board returns to in-person meetings, apart from policy 9 sub 9, where a trustee may attend electronically in certain circumstances, what might be the board's wishes with respect to others attending, guests, public, partners, staff, well, staff is in person, and so forth. And I don't have the answer. I think it may be premature, but I would defer to Superintendent Eberwin and see if he can assist us in an answer for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a multi-part answer. Yes, it would be the board's determination as to how it wanted to conduct business moving forward. And you were correct in your report that the expectation is that the addendum that was provided by the provincial health officer in early December, the intent of the indication yesterday was that that would be removed, which would allow for the possibility of in-person meetings to happen. Waiting for clarification, if any, on Friday. That is my understanding at this point, that in-person meetings such as staff meetings, staff committee meetings, in schools can resume as of Friday at midnight, but waiting with it for the Deputy Minister's report to come out on Friday with any clarification on that. The third point of consideration is the technology to do such a thing, and we are not currently in a situation in our boardroom right now to be able to run that efficiently or accurately. So that is technology that we're looking to obtain, similar to what was presented in my superintendent's report about the EX program. Slightly different than that for the boardroom, but we're still waiting on that to arrive. And so it's both a practical consideration and a board governance decision that needs to be taken into account moving forward.
And a budget question.
Thank you. And Trustee Silzer.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just would remind everyone that the last motion that was carried with respect to this matter was that the board would, I believe, I'm trying to find it, but I can't find it right yet, that the board would resume in-person meetings once the public health officer's directives allowed us to do so.
Allowed staff meetings to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if the PHO removes restrictions for our in-person gatherings for business meetings, then we will, according to our motion and that directive, we would be meeting in person as a board. And the question, and I guess we can decide then when we're in person as to what we are able to do in terms of virtual attendance of partners and,
yes,
and interested public.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah. That was the point of my raising it in my report, Trustee Silzer. You're quite correct that may be something the board will want to consider at that time, as some people may find it more convenient to attend electronically. We are moving away a bit from reports from trustee representatives. So are there any others? Thank you, folks. We'll move on then to correspondence. And that included the letter from COPAX. Trustee Silzer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I'd just like to say thank you to COPAX for their correspondence and their considerable work in surveying parents in the district. And they carefully considered the PHO directives made after their survey of parents ended on January 19th. And it resulted in COPAX coming to a neutral stance on mandatory staff vaccinations.
So, so Trustee Silzer, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it would be preferable if you moved your motion first.
I'm going to move it right now.
And then spoke to it.
Yeah. Yep, that's my next. Well, I just wanted to say thanks first, yes, but okay. Here's the motion. And I put the motion in the chat box, and it is further to the board's resolution adopted October 20th, 2021, in which the board expressed support for COVID-19 vaccinations and encouraged all employees and eligible students to be vaccinated. And given the high vaccination rates in our region and the continuing low incidence of COVID-19 within Saanich schools, and given the public health officer's recent directives relaxing pandemic measures, I move that the board not impose a staff COVID-19 vaccine mandate at this time.
Is there a seconder for this motion? Trustee Van Wel, Trustee Silzer, would you like to speak further?
Yes, I would, please. So I bring this motion because I think our school district 63 community is entitled to a decision from the board, one way or the other on the matter. I would not want our constituents to think that we were unaware, unwilling, or unable to make a decision with respect to this paramount matter of the health and safety of our students and staff. it would seem that many other boards, it seems that the majority of Vancouver Island boards have made policy decisions to either implement a proof of vaccination policy or not. And this evening, I have sent to trustees and staff an email I received at 7:47, I think it was, from VCPC. I asked how many boards in the province had proof of vaccination procedures. And the communications officer there reported to me that only 9 of 60 school boards in the province have mandatory vaccination procedures. And the BCPC has not kept track of how many boards have made decisions against vaccination mandates. In any event, I think we should make a decision one way or the other. And we have set out in the motion, the preface to the motion, the primary reasons are theirs, and there are other reasons as well that we know relate to the continuity of in-person class. So those are my comments.
Thank you. And Trustee Holman.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm not seeing anything in the chat box. I'm not seeing the motion. I have a note that it's being muted. Can others see the motion, or is it just me that's having difficulty?
Oh, okay, maybe I need to send it. There, sorry. Have you got it now?
Got it now, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. And Trustee Stelk.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to amend this motion that's on the floor by removing the word not.
That would not, I won't accept that amendment because it changes the substance and the complete intent of the motion. Trustee Stelk, your opposition should be expressed a different way, perhaps. Would you like to speak? Would you like to speak about this?
Yes, if this is the appropriate time, I would. I think that I'm going to reference the BC CDC site, which states that vaccines are the most effective way to reduce the risk of COVID. And I think our students, it's the success of our students, but it's also the well-being of our students in the district. And I think it's our moral responsibility to enable the students and the staff in Saanich schools to be as safe as possible. And therefore, I will oppose the motion.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the motion before I put the question? Trustee Silzer for a second time. Sorry, Trustee Silzer, I think I saw Trustee McMurphy and you've already spoken, so let's have Trustee McMurphy first.
First of all, just a point of order. I'm assuming that what's on the floor is only the sentence that begins, I move that the board, not all the rest of that, right?
Yeah, the preamble isn't part of it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Context.
Yeah, you know, where this item is on the agenda because of a report from COPAX about the work they did and the results they got in surveying the parents who are the parents of the children that are entrusted to us in our schools. And I guess I've been of the position from the beginning that if we are going to have a mandate for vaccination, it should come from the province. None of us are qualified as health experts in any way, shape, or form to make these kinds of decisions. I totally support Trustee Stelk's arguments about the need to protect the children that attend our schools. And I can't for the life of me figure out why the province hasn't taken the lead in this. But I think COPAX has told us that parents have taken a neutral stand basically through COPAX on this matter. And I think that that's what we should do too. I don't think we should take a position for or against mandatory vaccination, because I think it's something the province should be doing, not us. And I can't move it now because I've already spoken. But I think this motion should be tabled, because I don't think we should be on record as defeating it. I don't think we should be on record as approving of vaccination. I've wrestled with this issue, as I know all of us have, since the very beginning. And I keep coming back to the fact that I'm not a health expert. And so I'm looking to the province to provide that direction, and I just don't think it's up to us. But as I said, I think the motion should be tabled rather than defeated or approved.
And Trustee Silzer, I see that Trustee Holman wishes to speak too, and she hasn't yet spoken to the motion. Trustee Holman.
Yes, thank you. And I do wish to acknowledge and express gratitude for the work done by COPAX on this issue. I have personal views that are very strong in support of vaccines for this situation, for the pandemic. The board has received information both through the chair's reports and BCSTA reports, some of which is public, some of which is not. And as a board of directors or trustees, I'm in support of the motion. Again, relying upon Dr. Bonnie Henry's advice that was given in terms of the factors for school districts to consider in terms of local circumstances, and I also recognize the information from BCSTA as being very helpful, and I feel strongly that for the reasons stated that this is not the time to impose a vaccine, and I can support the motion, particularly because it says not at this time. That doesn't preclude from the board reconsidering it or changing it in future if circumstances change. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience, Trustee Silzer. Trustee Van Well now would like to speak for the first time. We will get to you back. No Trustee Van Well. You're muted, Terry.
Sorry, shoot. I would like to move that we table this decision.
I'll second the motion.
Moved by Trustee Van Well, seconded by Trustee McMurphy, that the motion be tabled. Do you wish to speak to this, Trustee Van Well?
Yeah, I think upon further information being provided, I think I do agree that we shouldn't have one, but I don't think that we should. I think and because of COPAX being neutral on it, I believe that it's in our best interest just to stay neutral as a board as well.
Okay, thank you. On the motion to table, I'll go to you, Trustee Silzer, if you wish to speak.
Yes, thank you. I guess I want to be perfectly clear that this is not a motion against vaccination. The board has already expressed its full support and encouragement of all staff and students who are eligible to be vaccinated. That's not the issue. The issue is the board just going to say, not my problem, when it is the law that we are the employers, that we should make it, that we are responsible for our employees and accordingly, and of course our students, with respect to their health and safety. And it's at the matter as just a decision-making exercise. to say, no, we don't want to make the decision, I think is not being a responsible board. So thank you.
Thank you. And Trustee Stelk?
Not me.
I'm sorry, Trustee Holman.
Yes, thank you. I won't support the motion. First off, there's no date as to when the motion would be readdressed. It's just a suspension, in my view, of making the decision. And I agree with Trustee Silzer. The province introduced a direction many months ago about this. We did respond with the letter of encouragement. I do believe that our community and parents and others would appreciate the board responding to the direction that was given by Dr. Bonnie Henry on this matter, and also through BCSTA and what the other school districts have also made decisions on it. So not making a decision isn't making a decision. And this motion to table gives me nothing to rely upon as to when or why it would be suspended and what would bring it back to the board's consideration. So I'm not in support of the amendment or the motion to table.
Thank you. And I'll put the question on the motion to table. All in favor of tabling the motion, please signify. And opposed? Thank you. The motion to table is carried.
Could my opposition be recorded in the minutes, please?
Yes, Trustee Holman's opposition to the motion to table will be noted.
And mine as well, please.
And Trustee Silzer's will be noted as well. Mr. Reid, thank you. Thank you. Trustees, we'll now go to item 15, the second question period of the evening. Are there any members of the partners?
Yes. There's another item on the correspondence agenda.
Oh, thank you. I skipped right by it, Trustee McMurphy. The letter from the minister. Yes. We're talking about the child care responsibility being moved into the Ministry of Education. Is there any discussion with respect to that item? Thank you for pointing that out.
Could I ask a question?
By all means.
I'm just trying to find it. Basically, this letter doesn't give us too much information. Am I correct in the way I'm reading it? There's just, this is sort of a heads up, more to come. And is it something that we need to be discussing in a more deliberate way at our board table, preparing for whatever might be happening as a result of moving childcare delivery into the Ministry of Ed?
Superintendent, Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Pepperwin.
Yeah, I can start off. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't believe so, not at this time. The intention of moving it into the Ministry of Education later this spring is not going to have any operational impact for the foreseeable future. It will move in and have its own separate division, and it won't have any direct impact on school district operations or board governance at this time. So we can anticipate more information as the transition happens. It's going to be a gradual process over time, and I expect more information from the Ministry of Education either later this spring or next fall on potential next steps and the implications for boards of education. We really don't have any specifics yet to really discuss around the table at this time.
I guess you probably know where I'm coming from in asking this question. I've got White Road flashing neon lights in my brain, and I'm wondering if this means a better opportunity for us. I know it's all tied up with the question of zoning right now, but does this enhance is there any possibility of it enhancing our project there?
So I don't think this in itself will enhance the probability of funding of that project. We should learn if it's funded by the end of March, okay. But it may guide what the program looks like in the future. The other thing I'd like to add is that, as the board knows, there were some legislative changes in the School Act, and there was a ministerial order that was introduced about a year ago, and the board made some policy changes as a result of that, and we implemented a new procedure. And one of those, amongst the changes, was the requirement for school districts to work with childcare operators in ensuring that childcare programs are inclusive and that they incorporate Indigenous reconciliation into their programs. And we have been working with the operators on implementing that and implementing a new kind of agreement, as most of the current lease agreements expire at the end of June. And so at a future meeting, first coming to Finance and Facilities, either in March or April, I'll have a report on the status of that.
And it might be something that she said, she's speaking selfishly on behalf of the Ed Directions Committee. It might be something that Ed Directions might like to be looking at too. You know, there's no overlap at the moment, but might there be at some point? Obviously, there's no rush to talk about it, but it's an exciting blip I see on the horizon.
Probably more than a blip, Trustee McMurphy, more than a blip.
Yeah,
thanks. Trustee Holman, you did have your hand up. Was it on this?
It was, but Secretary Treasurer's response saying that this would be coming to a March or April meeting suffice.
All right, thank you. We'll move then to item 15, the second question period. Are there any members of our partners or public who have any questions for us at this time? Mr. McEwen.
Thank you, Boyd. Thank you, Chair. My question relates to a comment that was made earlier in the evening around massaging a contract. I guess I wondered, to which contract was that in reference?
I don't remember the reference, Mr. McEwen. Can you help us?
Yeah, it had to do with the VIU program at ILC.
Oh, in the superintendent's report.
Yes.
Does that ring a bell, Mr. Eberwin?
I don't believe I said that. I don't know if Mr. Clerk referenced something.
It was Mr. Clerk who made that comment. I just wondered which contract she might have been referencing.
There is an agreement with every post-secondary institution that we enter into with regards to dual credit programs, and it was an ongoing conversation with VIU over the last several months to just work out the details around location, staff presence, how things would operate, those types of things. I don't have the details in front of me at this time, but it was around the operation of that dual credit program. It's not something that you just agree to overnight, but you go back and forth a number of times to figure out how staffing is going to work, how many students are enrolled, how the technology is going to work, those types of things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, then that appears to complete the agenda. Is there any objection, trustees, to adjourning at this time? Hearing none, I declare that the meeting is adjourned. But thank you all for attending and for your contribution, including partners and guests, as well as staff and the board, of course. Trustees and senior staff, you'll recall that we have to, after we've adjourned, return to and resume our in-camera meeting in just a few minutes. Why don't we give it 5 minutes and resume at about 9 o'clock, and I'll see you there.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night all.